This broadcast is a Stephen K. Media production.
The success of the small business person is the cornerstone of the American economy. Welcome to the Small Business Today Show with your hosts, Cruz and Hughes. The Small Business Today Show is for and about small business advancement and development. What we do for you. We'll be taking your calls as we provide you small business intelligence and mentorship needed to grow your business creatively. Keep listening. The Small Business Today Show with Cruz and Hughes starts now.
Hello and welcome back to today's episode of Small Business Today with Cruz and Hughes right here on Blog Talk Radio. We broadcast Monday through Friday every day for your listening pleasure from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. And this is a place where we discuss the topics that inspires entrepreneurs from thought to action. We welcome your comments, your questions. You can always give us a call right here in the studio at 347-857-3958. Again, that number here to the studio is 347-857-3958. Now, if you're watching us on Ustream.tv, you can see that I have a different person that's sitting to my left. There is no Hughes today. There's only Cruz, and we have a guest that we've had on the show before, Mr. Lynn Geralt. And Lynn is the director of a company called Lambda International, and he is our business advisor extraordinaire, as we've so affectionately referred to him the last time he was here. I want to say welcome to the show, and I thank you for sitting in for Irvin today.
Great. Well, thank you very much. What an honor to be here. I never imagined I'd be called back so soon. I must have done something right last time.
I'm telling you. You know, you're on for 3 days next week now. You know that, huh?
Oh, right. Good. I'm going to ask for triple pay then.
Well, how was your day today?
My day was marvelous. You have no idea how many things I did. I started out this morning with a wonderful coffee with a potential ally, somebody who's doing work for some major multinational corporations and like my international experience, and so we may be working on something together.
Okay.
Then I had lunch with somebody else who is going to be helping you and I on a project that we may be developing, so I thought that was great. And in the afternoon, I got a call from a major Eastern university that also wants me to help them on some executive education programs they have going on.
So you are a busy man.
It has been very busy. And then to cap it off, I come here with you. I mean, what more can a person ask?
Well, I'm glad to have you here. It's always a pleasure to sit down and talk with you. Now, you sort of switched gears on me today. You know, normally I am the person who does the interviewing, and you thought that it would be good to sort of switch hats, so to speak, and ask me some questions. Now, are these the types of questions that you ask of your business clients who come in and need your level of expertise?
Well, actually, no. They're the type of questions I ask of somebody who is an esteemed business person and who I think has an awful lot of insight to share with other business owners. However, there is something in common that I am going to ask you a lot about your business and where it's been, where it's going, and those kind of insights can be useful to our audience.
Well, all right. Well, we can get started and let's see how things go.
Well, I guess they say age before beauty, so I'll start off today. So, John, I was really interested and really surprised to see that you actually started off not in media, but as a mortgage banker. Could you please tell us a little about your young career and how it was in that industry?
Well, to be very, very quick and brief, I was a mortgage banker for several years. We grew a large organization. We had over 155 people that worked in our company. Mm-hmm. We sold our concern in 2005, right before the melee hit.
Good.
I went to work doing some things with a small equity firm out of New York, and when 2008 hit, it changed finance as I knew it, and so everything that I had done up until that time was really no longer relevant, and so although it was a great run, business was good up until about 2008, 2009. I sort of had to reinvent myself after that, and that wasn't easy.
Well, tell me a little bit about that, because you're not the only one who's had to reinvent himself after 2008.
That's
how
true.
were you before, and how are you now? Where did that invention come in?
Well, you know what? I think the major thing, Lynn, was waking up one day and finding out that everything that you knew to do to earn money for your family, you could not do anymore. There was no market for it. And it was very scary. And I think that so many small business people are still thinking with that 20th century mindset. You know, it's kind of like we become like Pavlov's dog, if you will. We get accustomed to doing the same things day in and day out. We think we know the market because we've had a little bit of success. It's kind of like if I go to get a sandwich every day out of the refrigerator and it always has a sandwich there for me to get. What happens when there is no sandwich in the refrigerator? I sort of get weirded out for a moment in terms of, okay, now where do I go and get my sandwich?
Yeah, I have heard that you start out with, first of all, fear, then you go to paralysis, and then finally you start moving. Tell me a little bit about how that structural change came about in you. What were the phases?
Well, the phases for me were, it started out with fear. And then it moved to paralysis, and then it moved to, quite honestly, and I haven't shared this with many people, but I became very depressed, and then I had this anger in me, you know, that everybody else was wrong, everybody else was stupid, you know, the world just didn't understand.
Somebody stole my cheese.
Yeah, that's right. But then, you know, you get to a point to where you sort of pick yourself up and you dust yourself off. And the thing that I had to realize is that when I came into business, I had absolutely nothing. And so I had absolutely nothing to lose. So after 2010 hit, I had absolutely nothing. So I had absolutely nothing to lose. But the difference was between me in 2010 and, say, me in 1992 or 1993 is that at least I had knowledge, experience, and contacts. And so step one was putting together a collage of what those contacts were, what they were doing, which ones were successful and why, which ones weren't successful and why. How could I parlay my skill and talent to somehow be a benefit to those individuals who were already having some success or was on the verge of some success?
Good. Let me stop you there. Tell me about your gut. How did you, because this is obviously an individual decision within an external environment. How did you manage thinking as opposed to your emotions? How were you feeling during that process, and how do you manage to channel it so successfully?
You know, the initial feeling that I had was fear. And that was it was the fear of the unknown, doubting yourself, you know, wondering if you still had it, those things. And as young as I am, and I'm not saying that facetiously, I mean, compared to some other people who've gone through some things.
Compared to me, I mean, come on, let's not be shy. Go ahead.
But still, nonetheless, in my universe, I still had those feelings of inadequacy. You know, I didn't know if I would be able to duplicate the same level of success that I had previously. And but now, one of the things that drives me is my fear. Well, I think one of the things that helped me to become a good entrepreneur was understanding that my life's experiences started on the outer edges of my comfort zone. When I've had my best success, it was always out on the edge of my comfort zone. So I had to get out of my pajamas, get back into my business attire, and go and do those things that I was most afraid to do. Go and call on those people that I was most afraid to call on.
Yeah, somebody told me the fear stops when the action begins.
Oh, yeah.
And I think what you're telling me is exactly like that.
Yeah.
John, one question. How about your family support? Because one of the things we understand is really key to a business entrepreneur is having his family or her family supporting. How was that in your case?
Well, in my case, it was paramount. My wife dealt with me as I went through this metamorphosis, and she stayed supportive. Although I know at times it really got on her nerves, being that cheerleader, if you will, encouraging me to get back to the person that she felt I never stopped being.
Is that the fear of the 15th and the 30th paycheck?
Somewhat, somewhat. But her support was phenomenal. It was exactly what I needed.
How long did this whole process last? Can you put a date on the beginning and the ending?
You know, we sold our firm in 2005, and I started working with an outfit out of New York, worked with them through 2010, and right around, I'd say 2009, that's when, 2009, 2010, that's when everything sort of collapsed. And from 2009, I'd say mid-year '09 to about mid-year 2010 is when I went through that trepidation and that self-doubt and that, all of that wondering. And then finally I just said, you know what, enough of this. It's time for me to pick up the sword and shield and get back out there.
Oh, and I think you've done a great job in going out with your sword and shield, because it seems to me that you're starting very, very well a new media enterprise.
New media enterprise. We have a business magazine here, and I also am part holder of a series of clinics that we have, that we do state and federal rehabilitation, and that's growing quite nicely. I mean, so life has really been good to me.
Oh, I think, John, this is absolutely marvelous. In the next session, I think we're going to talk a little bit more about then where you are now and where you're going instead of where you've been. This is very interesting.
We can do that. We can definitely do that. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll jump back into my life, I guess you will.
I'm going to jump with 2 feet and 2 arms for sure.
Well, guys, you're listening to Small Business Today with Cruz and Hughes. There is no Hughes with us today, but we do have Lynn Geralt, who is the director of Lambda International. Lynn is someone that we respect very highly. He is a business advisor. He's worked with all of the large concerns like Booz Allen, McKinsey, and now he's with Lambda International. If you would like to connect with Lynn, you could do so by going to his business website, which is lambdainternational.net. We'll be back in a moment. Stay tuned. More after this.
Turn up the sales on your website today with anythinginternet.com. Anything Internet will evaluate your website for marketing power, for traffic, for conversion rates. We'll figure out why people buy and why people go away. We'll help you generate the correct traffic that will turn into customers and make you money. Turn the juice up on your website today with anythinginternet.com. Turn your website into a web business. 1-800-686-5986.
Very often, people come to me saying,
Stephen, how do I make radio advertising work?
Or even worse,
we've tried radio ads before and got little to no response.
So how do you make the radio work for you? Well, you could have a clever jingle.
Come buy my stuff. Come buy my stuff.
Or you may act crazy and loud and have an unbeatable offer.
I'll save you cash, I'll save you time, and I'll do it today, guaranteed.
But these techniques may work for some and not for others. The real key to advertising is to go back to basic marketing principles. Target your ideal prospect, make your message clear and concise, and touch the listener by connecting to their needs. Stephen K. Media specializes in radio advertising promotion that effectively broadcasts your company's message, yielding higher response and better results. As an independent agency representing major talk radio stations, we help you negotiate rates and place your ads targeting your ideal prospect. Call us today at 713-278-9109 or visit stephenk.biz. That's 713-278-9109 or email info@stephenk.biz. Are you looking to improve your health and well-being? Have you lost your energy and vitality? Do you wake up feeling 10 years older than you actually are? Looking for a doctor who really listens? Looking for a natural alternative to your chronic health challenge? Dr. Dan Cuny is a chiropractic nutritionist who helps restore your health from the inside out using whole food supplements and specific nutritional counseling. Learn more about Dr. Dan's 7 Pillars of Health on his website, drdancuny.com, or give him a call at 713-295-9358.
Introducing the alternative to heavy news. Now,
Excuse me, heavy news?
you know, disasters, politics, stock market.
And this alternative is?
Coffee news. It's entertaining stories, famous quotes, and family fun. It's light news. Why it's so light, it's free.
Free?
In restaurants and coffee shops all across Houston. So next time you're waiting in a restaurant, look for coffee news. If they don't have it, tell them to get it by visiting coffeenewshouston.com.
It's light. It's free. It's coffee news.
Now playing at Regal Entertainment Group Theaters.
From Christopher Nolan.
The storm's coming.
The legend ends in IMAX. What are you? I'm Gotham directed it. The Dark Knight Rises. Rated PG-13. Visit IMAX.com for showtimes and listings.
Go to www.regmovies.com to find showtimes and buy your tickets to this and other great feature films now. That's www.regmovies.com.
You're listening to Small Business Today. Visit us on the web at cruiseandhughes.com. Here are your hosts, Cruz and Hughes.
Okay, welcome back to the show. Our guest today is Mr. Lynn Girault, and what I guess I should be saying is our interviewer today is Mr. Lynn Girault. Irvin had to take care of some business today. He's got some people in town that he does some business with, and he could not be here with us this afternoon. Lynn decided to sit in Irvin's place, and I guess we could say that we're having real talk today. We just sort of are just talking about business and as it relates to how I've been doing things, and I don't mind being interviewed. I kind of like sitting over here.
We're having an unscripted, improvised conversation, just like two old friends getting down and talking about stuff, which I think is marvelous. And this puts me in a great position because I get to ask somebody whom I really respect a lot about his experience in business. And I think this is great. We heard a lot about where you come from and how you landed and picked yourself back up. And so now I'm really interested, John, in for you telling us where are you now and what are you developing?
Well, you know, shortly after I sort of got back into the swing of things, a good friend of mine his name is Steve Levine. Steve was the publisher of a real estate magazine here in Houston. He called me one day and said that he wanted to get away from the outfit that he was with and have his own publication. And here he's calling someone who doesn't have any money, and he asked me if I could raise the money to get that magazine started, and he and I would partner in that venture. And this was in 2010. And so I told him, of course I could, and of course I would, and had no idea of where I was going to get the money from, but I raised those funds. We got the magazine started, and it's called Premier Agent Magazine, and the magazine focuses on real estate agents. The top that publication goes to the top 3,500 agents in this city. And one of the things that I like certain aspects about that business model, but I wanted to build upon that. And so I went back to Steve and said, you know what, we really should put together a publication on the same premise, but we open it up to all entrepreneurs and we send it out to anyone who needs that information. Because I forget the statistic, but it's somewhere in the neighborhood of about 70% of all businesses out there are less than 6 years old. And so, you know, when I thought about it, those are the people who need that education more so than anyone else.
Yeah, and I think the statistic's something like 50% of all businesses fail in the first 2 years.
Right.
So you've got a union between the people who have the highest need for information. At the same time, there's probably a dearth of information. There isn't a lot of information out there how to get over that hump, so to speak.
Absolutely. And so we developed a Small Business Today magazine, and I turned it into a radio show with the help of our producer, Stephen K. And we're bringing that information, individuals like yourself. I mean, you have negotiated and worked with multinational corporations, and you help bring that level of education and insight and break it down to scale so that a small outfit could use that information and knowledge to grow, you know, their company just as much as some of these larger firms.
Okay, John, share something with me. What has been your greatest challenge this last couple of years in entering into the media world? Anything that you weren't expecting, or is it?
You know, my greatest challenge has been myself, and again, this goes back to reinventing myself. I'm a mortgage banker, you know, so I'm someone who understood finance as it related to a piece of real estate.
May I stop you there? I would like our viewers to compare our handkerchiefs. His is perfectly orthogonal. I measured it. There's not an eighth of an inch difference from the top to the bottom. And mine was kind of thrown in here like I was walking in the room and had nothing else to do.
Well, you know, I'm dressed like the typical banker.
You are dressed like a banker, and I'm probably dressed like an out-of-work college professor. An absent-minded one, too.
Well, nonetheless, as I said, for me, my greatest challenge was myself. And as I sort of entered into something that I had no knowledge of. I've never been a personality on radio or TV. So developing that level of skill and having the confidence in myself that I could do this, so I was my biggest obstacle. And once I was able to get over my own self-doubt, my own fear, my own reasons of why not to attempt it, then I started seeing the heavens open up, if you will.
John, can I flip yours around and say that you really are your own greatest resource?
I would agree with
because
that.
I would say that probably your success in media and your success in what you're doing now, all these other ventures you're going to tell us about, has to do with what you learned, not just about yourself, but about how to deal with clients, how to deal with an organization, and basically how to manage any sort of a business day to day. They're not all that different.
That's it, you are very true, or you're very right. But you know what? When you're going through that struggle, sometimes we become separated from that knowledge. We start to feel like that everything that I knew and applied could only be applied in this particular field or this particular area. And when you think about it, the same level of success that it takes to build a restaurant and be successful, those same skills are necessary to build a construction company or you name it.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Tell me, what was the point when you felt eureka? When, okay, now I'm in my new field and I feel like I am successful.
Well, you know what? That eureka moment always comes when you close the first person. So when Steve said, look, I need to, we need to raise this amount of money. And as soon as I was able to find someone to put up that amount of money, that's when I realized, you know what? I still got it. The only thing is that I've not lost anything. It's just that now I just need to apply my skills and talents in a different way so that I stay relevant to my market.
Good. Tell me, when people say there's a beginning, there's a middle, there's a growth to different businesses, how have you seen it in your business? Like, can you tell when the end of the beginning of the middle, the growth? How have you felt about the evolution of your business?
Well, I feel great about the evolution of the business that I'm in now, and I see that there is just so much opportunity. But if we could go back to when I was in the mortgage business, some people ask me, well, how did you have the foresight or the presence of mind to sell early? Because most people were they were doing their best years in 2004, 5, and 6. And here it is, I was shopping to sell a company.
Well, they say that's when you got to sell when everybody wants to buy.
Absolutely. But I also saw that, you know what, we can't keep operating like this. As a banker, when you start looking at those numbers of defaults and the fact that we're giving loans and access to capital to people who really should not have it, it sort of scared me. And then when I saw, too, that the market itself, the bankers who purchased these loans, so if someone came to me and bought a tranche of loans, the amount that they were willing to pay, even though these loans were performing, that amount kept going down. Well, if everything was going good, why is that amount getting so much smaller? If these people are paying on time and doing everything that you're telling us that they should be doing.
Because the risk,
risk was going through the risk that we couldn't see, but the bankers were seeing, and they were covering that up. So they kept reducing the amount that they would pay for those loans. And so the business really, if you look at it, started becoming less profitable if you maintained your own portfolio of business. So I said, you know what? Something's not right. It's time to go ahead and get out.
So you got into media. Now you're basically in the information business.
Basically.
And how do you see the risk of this business? Because there's got to be risk everywhere.
There is. There definitely is risk, but I think it's a little different. I think that if you project the right message and you talk to the right audience, then, there's no limit to where you could take your business. So I just see nothing but growth and upside as long as we can remain relevant to our audience.
How do you see the growth coming in the next few years? Do you have any vision down the 5-year path?
Well, you know what? If I were to go back to something that I learned in watching Coca-Cola, how they have gone from a company that just puts out ads and what they call creative excellence, and now they have changed that to support what they refer to as content excellence, meaning that they're interacting with their client. They want to know more about their client. It's more than us just putting a static ad out there and hoping people will see it and then respond to it. We actually need to know more about our customer. What are those triggers that are those impulses that causes them to buy? And I think that all entrepreneurs should look at their business and their product in that same way. Businesses change. You just don't stick a website out there and then all of a sudden 100 clients are going to walk through the door. It's more than that. It's like building a restaurant because you make good fried chicken. Well, it takes more than just good fried chicken to build a successful restaurant.
Yeah, somebody told me the other day, we don't sell anymore. We build relationships with our customers. Do you think that applies?
I love that. Absolutely, I agree with that.
Well, that's marvelous. And how do you see your relationship building going on right now in your company?
Well, I see it going very well, because one of the things that we do is we tell the stories of the people who work with us, the people who advertise in our magazine. Everyone has a backstory. And that story has a level of relevance to your clients. But most entrepreneurs don't take advantage of that. Just like I tell the story today about my struggle. People like to hear that, because now I don't feel so alone as I'm going through my struggle. Now I'm more endeared to you because I feel that I hear some of the similarities in your life that I'm experiencing in my own.
I'm sharing your struggle with you. It is no longer your struggle, it's our struggle.
That's right. And so my thing is that with our clients, we're having much success with them and building a relationship with them, because we're taking those stories that you otherwise would not hear when you go in and you patronize someone's business, and we're bringing that to the forefront. This is what it took to get to this point, and this is the role that our customer plays in our success.
And I think you touched on something very important, which is telling a story.
Right.
And that's what I think we're going to be focusing on in our next segment.
All right, telling some stories.
Exactly.
Guys, we're going to take a short break. You're listening to Small Business Today with Cruz and Hughes. If you're watching us on Ustream.tv, you'll notice that there is no Hughes. Sitting in for Irvin today is Mr. Lynn Girault. He is the director of Lambda International. Lynn was our guest last week, and if you have not heard some of Lynn's ideologies, I definitely encourage you to go to our website, find Lynn's interview, and listen to it to its entirety. I think that you'll get a lot from it. We'll be back in a moment. Today's show is brought to you by Small Business Today magazine. It is for and about Houston's entrepreneurs. To get your free copy of what we produce every single month, you can go to smallbusinesstodaymagazine.com. Put your information in. We'll send one to you on the double. Take care. We'll be right back.
Turn up the sales on your website today with anythinginternet.com. Anything Internet will evaluate your website for marketing power, for traffic, for conversion rates. We'll figure out why people buy and why people go away. We'll help you generate the correct traffic that will turn into customers and make you money. Turn the juice up on your website today with anythinginternet.com. Turn your website into a web business. 1-800-686-5986.
Very often, people come to me saying,
Stephen, how do I make radio advertising work?
Or even worse,
we've tried radio ads before and got little to no response.
So how do you make the radio work for you? Well, you could have a clever jingle.
Come buy my stuff. Come buy my stuff.
Or you may act crazy and loud and have an unbeatable offer.
I'll save you cash. I'll save you time, and I'll do it today, guaranteed.
But these techniques may work for some and not for others. The real key to advertising is to go back to basic marketing principles. Target your ideal prospect, make your message clear and concise, and touch the listener by connecting to their needs. Stephen K. Media specializes in radio advertising promotion that effectively broadcasts your company's message, yielding higher response and better results. As an independent agency representing major talk radio stations, we help you negotiate rates and place your ads targeting your ideal prospect. Call us today at 713-278-9109 or visit stephenk.biz. That's 713-278-9109 or email info@stephenk.biz. Are you looking to improve your health and well-being? Have you lost your energy and vitality? Do you wake up feeling 10 years older than you actually are? Looking for a doctor who really listens? Looking for a natural alternative to your chronic health challenge? Dr. Dan Cuny is a chiropractic nutritionist who helps restore your health from the inside out using whole food supplements and specific nutritional counseling. Learn more about Dr. Dan's 7 Pillars of Health on his website, drdancuny.com, or give him a call at 713-295-9358.
Introducing the alternative to heavy news. Now,
Excuse me, heavy news?
you know, disasters, politics, stock market.
And this alternative is...
Coffee news. It's entertaining stories, famous quotes, and family fun. It's light news. Why it's so light, it's free.
Free?
In restaurants and coffee shops all across Houston. So next time you're waiting in a restaurant, look for coffee news. If they don't have it, tell them to get it by visiting coffeenewshouston.com.
It's light. It's free. It's coffee news.
Now playing at Regal Entertainment Group Theaters.
From Christopher Nolan,
This storm's coming.
the legend ends in IMAX. What are you? I'm customs reckoning. The Dark Knight Rises. Rated PG-13. Visit IMAX.com for showtimes and listings.
Go to www.regmovies.com to find showtimes and buy your tickets to this and other great feature films now. That's www.regmovies.com.
You're listening to Small Business Today with Cruz and Hughes. Follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. We're wherever you are.
Okay, welcome back to the show. If you're watching us on Ustream.tv, you'll notice that our trusty co-host, Mr. Urban Hughes, is not in today. Urban had some work that he had to tend to, so we're minding the store without him. I have to my left today Mr. Lynn Girault, who is the director of Lambda International. If you would like to connect with Lynn, you could always go to his business website, which is lambdainternational.net. And Lambda is spelled L-A-M, B as in boy, D as in Derek, A, lambdainternational.net. Now, we've talked a little bit about myself for the first half of the show. And one of the things that you said that you do like is storytelling. Why don't you now take the turn and tell us a little bit about some of your struggles or successes?
Well, like I told you before, I've had probably 3 different careers in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And talk about shipwrecks. I've seen more waves than the Ancient Mariner. My original career was an architect and a construction manager, and as you know, that's a very topsy-turvy career.
Mm-hmm.
I was working in Miami in 1990, and I was the last employee on the site, and I had to give the keys to 4 buildings that I was building to the bank because the developer had defaulted on the loans, and there just wasn't any money, so the bank took the project over, and I was literally the last man standing.
Wow.
And luckily, I had seen that coming, and I was able to get a plan B together in terms of having a scholarship for an MBA program in my back pocket.
Okay.
So that was when I got my MBA at the University of Pennsylvania, because a year before I'd applied to be accepted and had actually gotten a scholarship, without whom I could never have gone to school again.
Okay.
Don't forget, I was 35 with a wife and 2 kids. It's not like you can just abandon one job and go go back to school unless I had that financial safety net, which luckily I had. I think, for me, I was younger, and when you're younger, you really don't realize all the terrible things that could happen to you. But I do have a couple of stories to tell from that. I think one of the things is that family support is very important.
Mm-hmm.
I could not have done that without the support of my wife. And I think you also have to have a lot of faith in God and yourself.
I would agree.
Because here you are, I had been working with these people for 2 years. They had been recommended to me by my godmother because they were friends of my godmother. And all of a sudden I find out that the business is going under, and it wasn't all clean as white wool, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
There were some errors made and some terrible decisions made. And so it really knocks you off your comfort zone, because when all of a sudden everything you've been working for collapses within the question of a few weeks, that really makes you doubt your self-confidence.
Right.
And in my case, luckily, I had prepared for that by having a plan B, which was going to have an MBA, and I thank God for that. But some other people aren't so lucky. Some other people are really just thrown out into the street, and that's what makes it so painful, when you don't have a plan B.
Yeah.
And it's even worse if you don't have that support network of family, friends, and God, which I think is important. We all have to have some faith, whatever it is. So that, for me, was a very important point. A second point for me, well, I have to say it right now, in my consulting career, I tell everybody, we've gone broke twice.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason we've gone broke twice in Lambda is not because we don't have good business advice. It's because we read the business cycle wrong. Both times we actually loaded up having more people and more consultants and more fixed costs than we could reasonably bear. And when the business cycle turned against us, we were probably too slow to let people go. That's when our heart got into our pocketbook, and we made decisions with our heart.
I cannot think of the name of the book that I read, but it's about the gentleman who wrote this book about the consulting business, and then they made a mini-series about it whereby Don Cheadle was playing the main character. And I'll come up with the name of that book and let you guys know what
My wife probably wouldn't let me read it.
Well, at any rate, one of the things that he talked about in that book, he worked for McKinsey as well, and he talked about how cyclical the consulting business is. He says, because when the markets are great, you need more consultants. But as soon as the market would start to slow down, the first thing that they would do is get rid of all of these other consultants and start turning them out into the cold.
That's exactly, and we didn't do that. We actually tried to keep people on as long as we could.
Yeah.
And it happened to us twice. But the problem is you always have the eternal optimist in you.
Yes.
And there's something else is that you want to avoid the pain of having to let people go.
Yes.
The pain of having to recognize that things are going to be tough. It's like as long as you have enough cash and you're making payroll, you're not really worried the fact that it's coming out of your real savings and your reserves. You're putting off a painful decision, which is I am going to have to get into lean mode. I'm going to have to let people go, and things are going to be tough for the next few months or maybe even years or so. So we made that mistake twice, and we ended up moving now to what I would call a flex time, where we basically hire people according to the projects and have a very good network of excellent consultants. So we can always deliver top quality work, but we can be more flexible in our resource needs and how many people we have at any given moment on our staff.
Now, how often is it then when you are working with someone that you see that they may be in a sector of the market that is experiencing a lull, and it's time for them now to go into lean mode? And when you say lean mode, what I hear as an entrepreneur is I need to start getting rid of what is generally our biggest expense as an operation, and that's labor.
Okay, good. Yes, I agree. And I have to answer your question in two parts. Don't forget, there's two types of businesses. There's like the flow business, which is those retail businesses that don't depend on a simple contract or a single client for a lot of their bulk of work. And then there are those contract businesses like consulting, like engineering, that basically depend on a few bigger contracts to make their growth at the end of the year. If you're in the retail, then you're probably going to see it drop by drop, where sales stop growing or stabilize or start going down. And there actually you're in a better position because you have a little bit more time to react, because you are only going to lose customers one at a time or one sale at a time, but they're going to each represent a relatively smaller part of your overall budget. So you actually have more time to react. Now, businesses like consulting, for example, we were doing maybe 10, 12 projects a year, somewhere $30,000, $40,000 a project. But if all of a sudden you go down to half of that, that only means that you lost maybe 6 or 7 projects. You might say, well, but 6 or 7 projects, yeah, but that's 50% of your revenue.
Absolutely.
And it can hit you just like a thunderbolt. Whereas one month you had projects coming in the door and the next month you have nothing.
Yeah.
And it can be absolute zero, nada. And so when you're in that kind of an industry, it really is riskier. And you have to be more alert and look downstream as to where am I going to be in 3 months by looking upstream as what's coming down the pipeline. And the moment you see that pipeline is getting empty or less full, that is when you need to have to worry. So I have really two answers, depending on what kind of an industry you're in.
Okay.
However, at the end of the day, it is a difficult decision. It is a very gutsy call to say we need to shift from growth mode to defensive mode. And that's something that in your mortgage banker risk analysis, you must have learned that analysis of risk is one of the key elements for any business owner.
Absolutely. If you can't mitigate risk, I don't think that you're prepared for entrepreneurship.
Exactly. Now, entrepreneurship is risk.
Yes,
and I would say that it is probably not as common to see those situations where businesses go belly up one day to the other, like happened to my developer, my boss. I mean, I didn't see it because I was only there building the building, but I'm sure they had seen it for months before.
Right.
So I don't think that is as unusual. What I think is more unusual is that drip, drip, sales are going down or the risk of the business is going up. And yet it's like, the story of the frog in the saucepan? If you put a frog in a saucepan and you slowly start turning up the fire, turning up the fire, turning up the fire, you could actually probably cook the frog because you're going to lull the frog into a sense of security. Whereas if you dump the frog into a hot saucer pan, immediately he's going to jump out.
Yeah.
There's no way he's going to go in there. However, if you just cook them little by little, you'd be surprised how many of those poor frogs can get cooked. Exactly. Sit there and get cooked. So I think the lesson for us today is not be a frog. Let us not be cooked. We really have to be aware of the risk in our business, however it may be, whether it's that big contract loss risk or that small drop-by-drop loss of sales.
Well, and that calls for entrepreneurs then to be very mindful of where they are month to month. Because because sometimes markets don't all of a sudden, you don't always experience a crash like we did in 2008 or what this economy or this country experienced in 1929. I mean, sometimes it's very slow and systematic. And but as it gets worse, I could definitely see where you're coming from in terms of some entrepreneurs just slowly being optimistic about where things are heading.
Until it's too late.
Yes. So you got to recognize those trends.
You got to recognize those trends, and you got to hold on to your gut to make those tough decisions, because that's why you're an entrepreneur.
Now, how often do people ask you then to come in and make those tough decisions for them as a
Luckily, I haven't been asked that often. I try to come into a company before it's at the frog in the saucer pan stage. I try to focus on finding growth. And I think one of the key elements there is, even if they've taken your cheese away, let's find some more cheese. Let's find a new kind of cheese.
So there is more cheese.
There's always going to be cheese out there. I mean, even in the worst of times, you can sell handkerchiefs.
Hey, or sandwiches. People have to eat. Guys, when we come back, we're going to talk with Lynn Gerald just a little bit more. You can see that Cruz and Hughes is short the Hughes today, but we do have Mr. Lynn Gerald with us. Lynn is the director of Lambda International. If you would like to connect with Lynn, you could do so by going to his business website, which is lambdainternational.net, or you can call him at 713-447-1443. Again, that number is 713-447-1443. Today's show is also brought to you by Sales Nexus. If you need a CRM system in your business that will help you increase sales, you got to go to salesnexus.com. More in a moment. We'll be right back after this.
Turn up the sales on your website today with anythinginternet.com. Anything Internet will evaluate your website for marketing power, for traffic, for conversion rates. We'll figure out why people buy and why people go away. We'll help you generate the correct traffic that will turn into customers and make you money. Turn the juice up on your website today with anythinginternet.com. Turn your website into a web business. 1-800-686-5986.
Very often, people come to me saying,
Stephen, how do I make radio advertising work?
Or even worse,
we've tried radio ads before and got little to no response.
So how do you make the radio work for you? Well, you could have a clever jingle.
Come buy my stuff. Come buy my stuff.
Or you may act crazy and loud and have an unbeatable offer.
I'll save you cash. I'll save you time, and I'll do it today, guaranteed.
But these techniques may work for some and not for others. The real key to advertising is to go back to basic marketing principles. Target your ideal prospect, make your message clear and concise, and touch the listener by connecting to their needs. Stephen K. Media specializes in radio advertising promotion that effectively broadcasts your company's message, yielding higher response and better results. As an independent agency representing major talk radio stations, we help you negotiate rates and place your ads targeting your ideal prospect. Call us today at 713-278-9109 or visit stephenk.biz. That's 713-278-9109 or email info@stephenk.biz. Are you looking to improve your health and well-being? Have you lost your energy and vitality? Do you wake up feeling 10 years older than you actually are? Looking for a doctor who really listens? Looking for a natural alternative to your chronic health challenge? Dr. Dan Cooney is a chiropractic nutritionist who helps restore your health from the inside out using whole food supplements and specific nutritional counseling. Learn more about Dr. Dan's 7 Pillars of Health on his website, drdancooney.com, or give him a call at 713-295-9358.
Introducing the alternative to heavy news. Now,
Excuse me, heavy news?
you know, disasters, politics, stock market.
And this alternative is?
Coffee news. It's entertaining stories, famous quotes, and family fun. It's light news. Why it's so light, it's free.
Free?
In restaurants and coffee shops all across Houston. So next time you're waiting in a restaurant, look for coffee news. If they don't have it, tell them to get it by visiting coffeenewshouston.com.
It's light. It's free. It's Coffee News.
Now playing at Regal Entertainment Group Theaters.
From Christopher Nolan.
The storm's coming.
The legend ends in IMAX. What are you? I'm Gotham's Reckoning. The Dark Knight Rises. Rated PG-13. Visit IMAX.com for showtimes and listings.
Go to www.regmovies.com to find showtimes and buy your tickets to this and other great feature films now. That's www.regmovies.com.
You're listening to Small Business Today. Visit us on the web at cruzandhughes.com. Here are your hosts, Cruz and Hughes.
Okay, welcome back to the show. Well, I am alone today with no Hughes. I'm talking to Lynn Geralt, who is the director of Lambda International. Now, we went to break. We've talked a little bit about storytelling. We've talked about struggles. We talked a little bit about what you do for small businesses. Let's talk about this perspiration inspiration ideology of yours. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, it's not mine. It was Thomas Alva Edison, who's obviously one of the greatest minds that the U.S. has produced in the last couple of hundred years, said that genius was 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. And if you remember at his labs, I think it was in Menlo Park in New Jersey.
That's right.
He was full of like 100,000 experiments going on at one time. For example, I think somebody said that for the filament for his light bulb, he ended up trying something like 30,000 different types.
That's right.
He didn't have a real theoretical background nor a real theoretical strength. He was more the perspiration. Let's grind it out. Let's try everything and see what works. And my feeling from what I've seen in the last 20 years is that old Tom had it right. You do need a lot of perspiration, and you also need some inspiration.
So action is everything.
Well, no, action is 90-something%. Look at. We were just talking for you viewers who didn't listen. We were talking about Nikola Tesla, who had we don't know how many patents. He was one of the greatest inventors, probably the equal, if not the theoretical superior of Edison. But
and he came through Edison's camp as well.
But he did not have exactly a happy ending. He was more of a theoretical, these are the ideas, and I'll let somebody else develop it. And unfortunately, because of that, a lot of times the other people ended up
making the money.
On it.
Mr. Westinghouse.
Mr. Westinghouse, exactly the person I was going to say.
So then, when you think about it, having an entrepreneurial mindset, it really, it's needed, even though, this guy was a scientific whiz, I hate to use the word taken advantage of, but really it's nothing other than that he was taken advantage of by these entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I don't know. I would just say to each his own, because if you couldn't put in the perspiration, and obviously Tesla was more interested in the inspiration and getting the theory right and doing new experiments and everything else. For him, the actual execution was something that he could leave to somebody else. However, the monetary benefits come not just from having the idea. They actually have the benefit comes from putting it into practice.
True. Now, when you think about entrepreneurs, would you say that all entrepreneurs are the same, that there's a format that could be quantified in terms of identifying what an entrepreneur is, or are there varying degrees, if you will?
Well, I have a limited experience. I'm fairly young still, I would say, though, that within what I have seen, that you can probably be a successful entrepreneur with just about any skill set. It's not written in stone what you have to be. We can look, for example, let's look at the big names that everybody knows. You've got the internet millionaires, be it Zuckerman from Facebook or Bill Gates in his time, Steve Jobs. They had a brilliant idea, but they also worked at it sufficiently and to get it launched enough so that it was a viable product. They did not just give somebody else, here's my idea, here's a little paper with a little light bulb on it, you go and you develop it, because that would have left them totally out of the monetary picture. So I think that in that sense, you can have just about any sort of a skill set as long as you're willing to mix both inspiration and perspiration. Now, going back to entrepreneurs, it's not all just high technology. I've known a lot of entrepreneurs who are in the construction business. Remember what we talked about last week? The artisan, the industrialist, and the conglomerator. All three of them can begin as entrepreneurs. All three are entrepreneurs. It's just a matter of how far are they going to go depending on their skill set. So if your skill set is strictly a technical one, you may end up just staying at the artisan stage.
Mm-hmm.
If you happen to combine some of the other skills, the managerial skills, the people development skills, a bit of the financial skills, then you can definitely grow your business till you're an industrialist stage. And finally, if you're one of those special people that could combine all that, as well as have the capability and the emotional stability to be able to stand all the problems that you're going to have as you grow a business, then you can go into the conglomeration stage where you're going to see your business grow to that $50, $100 million range, which isn't so common in small businesses. But I hope I've answered your question. I don't think there's a specific personality type or set of skill that you have to be successful, but you do have to recognize that success is going to have a different level depending on which type of personality you have.
And it's better to understand which one of those types you are and exploit who you are to the fullest.
Exactly. There's nothing that would be more tragic than taking an artisan and trying to make him or her the conglomerator. Exactly. It's not going to fit. That person's just going to be very, very unhappy.
Absolutely.
I have somebody I know right now who is in that situation. The father is actually a very successful industrialist.
Mm-hmm.
The son, I sense, is more comfortable in the artisan role. And yet the son is, I won't say forced, but it's looked at that he would fit in the shoes of the industrialist that his father was.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, this son would actually be happier taking part of this company private and then running it at the artisan level that he would feel comfortable. Forget about going to the conglomerator level.
Absolutely.
This son would be much, much happier at the artisan level. And that is perfectly respectable.
And I believe in going to where you're most happy. I mean, if you're happy being a one-man show, then just be that. You define your own level of success, and you don't have to live up to what someone else has created for you. Although I do know that we deal with those pressures put on us by our friends, our family, and so forth and so on. But I believe in, define what your level of success is and go out and get that and be happy. I mean, other than that, what's it all for?
Yeah, we talked about that last week, and I hope we got the message across to our entrepreneurs out there. There is no specific role. There is no road you have to follow. You have to make your own road.
Right.
And each one, if you're successful, will be valuable.
Now, I want us to get into very quickly before we go into our last segment. We talked a little bit off the air in terms of what the future of media is. And I sort of touched on that in the first segment. But before we go into break, why don't you give me a couple of things, a couple of nuggets from where you sit and where you think media is going?
Okay, I think media is
print dead?
I don't think print is dead. I think print is going to do what the dinosaurs did.
Okay.
Turn into birds.
Okay.
They're not extinct. They just evolved and they morphed.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised if within 50 years, print as we know it has evolved into the iPad, or it's evolved into electronic paper, or it's evolved into some other specific non-print as we know it form. However, in the sense of print, which is you have a product that is yours and you take home and you read it or you doodle on it or whatever, I think that part of print is always going to remain. Now, it may not be on a paper. So I don't know if I answered your question or weaseled out of it. I kind of weaseled out of it. Meaning, I don't think it's going to all be just on a screen. I think the idea of having something tangible that you put on the shelf and say, this is mine, we'd like to have that.
Well, for myself, I like the smell and texture and feel of having a good book or magazine in my hand. So I know that there's a smaller market for it, but for me, it still exists.
It'll be around, John. You and I will always be buying books. Don't worry about it.
You're listening to Small Business Today with Hughes and Hughes, which is brought to you by Small Business Today magazine. To get your copy sent to you each and every month of the magazine that is for and about Houston's entrepreneurs, go to smallbusinesstodaymagazine.com, and we'll be happy to send it to you. More in a moment with Lynn Gerald. Don't go away. The education continues.
Turn up the sales on your website today with anythinginternet.com. Anything Internet will evaluate your website for marketing power, for traffic, for conversion rates. We'll figure out why people buy and why people go away. We'll help you generate the correct traffic that will turn into customers and make you money. Turn the juice up on your website today with anythinginternet.com. Turn your website into a web business. 1-800-686-5986.
Very often, people come to me saying,
Stephen, how do I make radio advertising work?
or even worse,
We've tried radio ads before and got little to no response.
so how do you make the radio work for you? Well, you could have a clever jingle.
Come buy my stuff. Come buy my stuff.
Or you may act crazy and loud and have an unbeatable offer.
I'll save you cash, I'll save you time, and I'll do it today, guaranteed.
But these techniques may work for some and not for others. The real key to advertising is to go back to basic marketing principles. Target your ideal prospect, make your message clear and concise, and touch the listener by connecting to their needs. Stephen K. Media specializes in radio advertising promotion that effectively broadcasts your company's message, yielding higher response and better results. As an independent agency representing major talk radio stations, we help you negotiate rates and place your ads targeting your ideal prospect. Call us today at 713-278-9109 or visit stephenk.biz. That's 713-278-9109 or email info@stephenk.biz. Are you looking to improve your health and well-being? Have you lost your energy and vitality? Do you wake up feeling 10 years older than you actually are? Looking for a doctor who really listens? Looking for a natural alternative to your chronic health challenge? Dr. Dan Cooney is a chiropractic nutritionist who helps restore your health from the inside out using whole food supplements and specific nutritional counseling. Learn more about Dr. Dan's 7 Pillars of Health on his website, drdancooney.com, or give him a call at 713-295-9358.
Introducing the alternative to heavy news. Now at,
Excuse me, heavy news?
you know, disasters, politics, stock market.
And this alternative is...
Coffee news. It's entertaining stories, famous quotes, and family fun. It's light news. Why it's so light, it's free.
Free?
In restaurants and coffee shops all across Houston. So next time you're waiting in a restaurant, look for coffee news. If they don't have it, tell them to get it by visiting coffeenewshouston.com.
It's light. It's free. It's coffee news.
Now playing at Regal Entertainment Group Theaters.
Christopher Nolan.
The storm's coming.
The legend ends in IMAX. What are you? I'm directed it. The Dark Knight Rises. Rated PG-13. Visit IMAX.com for showtimes and listings.
Go to www.regmovies.com to find showtimes and buy your tickets to this and other great feature films now. That's www.regmovies.com.
You're listening to Small Business Today with Cruz and Hughes. Follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. We're wherever you are.
Okay, welcome back to the show. Our guest today is Mr. Lynn Girault. He's the director of Lambda International. Now, in the last segment, we were sort of wrapping up with the future of media, and we sort of tackled the print thing, but you've introduced a new theory, if you will. I want you to take a couple minutes and explain that.
Sure. I was thinking, John asked me in the break, how do I see media evolving? And I look at all the principles, which are interactivity, multiple different sources, multiple vehicles or mechanical devices to interact with, and I see this coalescing into 3 poles. One, the game pole, which is when we play stuff, whether it be a Wii or Nintendo or something like that, or even the game shows that you have on TV where people from the audience participate or people at home participate. And those are what I would call the active pole, where you are actually at home but you're participating in the game. Then in the middle you have what I call the whole entertainment, news, and watching sports, which is perhaps a more passive participation, where you're basically watching, who's going to, I was fascinated this week, who's going to win the Ryder Cup, how are the Texans going to do?
Yeah.
That kind of sports is very important, but it's entertaining if you were just watching it at home, whether they may be betting it or not or something else. But then finally, the last thing I think is coming is infotainment, and I think this is something that is really coming into its own, where people want to learn as well as they want to be entertained. Mm-hmm. And I don't just mean academic learning. I think they want learning in sort of a broader sense of stuff that will be useful to me in my life once I turn the TV off. So those are our 3 poles, and I think that each way you cut it, it's going to be more attractive, more dynamic, and more focused on the individual.
Lynn, I appreciate you coming in as usual. And remember, you're here 3 days next week. So.
Thank you. At triple the salary, of course.
At triple the salary. But I do appreciate you coming in. Our guest today has been Mr. Lynn Girault. If you want to connect with Lynn, you could go to lambdainternational.net, or you can call him at 713-447-1443. Guys, I want to thank you for tuning in to Small Business Today with Cruz and Hughes. Until tomorrow, be smart, be successful, and above all else, be in action. And I'll see you tomorrow.